Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I'm really excited to be joined on today's episode by Lauren Benton, who is the general manager of the U.S. for Back Market, which is a refurbished tech marketplace. And we're going to talk to Lauren today about the back market business and kind of the trend of re-commerce, particularly around her product category, technology, and just kind of the overall growth in consumer interest in re-commerce. So, Lauren, I'm really looking forward to the conversation, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, Joe. We are excited to be here.
So I did a very quick overview of Back Market in my introduction, but I'd love for you to get a little more in depth and tell the audience about Back Market for those that might not yet be familiar with the company.
Yeah, for those not familiar with Back Market, we are a marketplace for verified refurbished tech devices operating in 18 global markets. We've actually got about 10 million customers. And so these are customers that are coming to us to purchase their first smartphone for a kid, a tablet, to update their own laptop, to gift themselves some noise canceling headphones. All of our prices are going to be 70% less than new, and everything comes with a 1-year warranty and a 30-day no questions asked return policy, because we're really encouraging customers to take that first step to try what is a refurbished device over buying new.
So thinking about the products, how do you kind of assess the quality and what you want to include on the marketplace? How do you kind of source your products that are going to then be sold secondhand to consumers? Maybe talk a little bit about that kind of intake process for goods that you're going to eventually resell.
Absolutely. So two ways that we're going to be bringing devices onto the platform. But one thing I want to call out is that as a marketplace, Back Market is working with a couple hundred professional refurbishers within the United States. And they are acquiring these devices primarily through trade-in programs. So when you have traded in your device at a telco store or on Back Market, customers are able to trade in their devices for hard cash. Those devices are going back to these professional businesses who are using robust technologies to diagnose and to repair these devices to bring them back to a like new state, to then bring them back onto Back Market and resell to our customers. So when you ask a little bit about where those devices are coming from, they're coming from you as we are responsibly passing those back into the circular economy. And you're going to hear from me talk a little bit more about the challenges we have with e-waste, because I think sometimes some of us don't even know how to appropriately dispose of those devices. You also asked about the quality piece of it, but I will touch more on that shortly. But I would say that that's really the secret sauce for Back Market. And you're going to hear me address that in a lot of different conversations when we speak about how we differentiate and how we drive customers to switch from, this habit we have of buying new tech over. All of it is going to be within how we can guarantee that quality for them.
Yeah, and actually, it's a good segue into what I wanted to address in terms of recirculating those products back into the supply chain, and obviously the sustainability benefits of that, right? So that kind of that re-commerce, and I know this is something that Back Market takes a lot of pride in, and you've recently released at the company your first sustainability report. So maybe one, talk a little bit about why you felt it was necessary to release a sustainability report in the first place, and then secondarily, what were some of the key highlights that you included in this year's report?
Yeah, Joe, I led with what we do, and it's the why that's behind it you're speaking to. So when we were founded in 2014, the real mission behind Back Market is to decarbonize tech and providing this more sustainable way of consuming. I would challenge if any of our listeners today really know that e-waste is the fastest growing source of municipal trash around the world. And it's also the most poisonous. So it accounts for 70% of the toxins that are sitting in our landfill. And so as we, as Back Market, are so focused on extending the lives of the tech devices that we have to really prevent that harmful habit that we have of just tossing them in the trash. So Back Market in 2023 hit our 10-year, well, we're hitting our 10-year anniversary now. We accomplished a B Corp certification, and we also hit a key milestone of preventing over 100 million tons of CO2 emission through the volume of devices that we sold in our marketplace over those past 10 years. And we work very hard on our storytelling to educate the US customers about the impact of circular tech. And a big step for us was that release of the impact report that you were mentioning. And I think it really helps us to take these hard stats when we talk about, the CO2 avoided, saved, and bring that into storytelling. And so one of the things that you'll see in there is we talk about the fact that our current behavior is to trade in our devices, to upgrade our devices, something like a smartphone, every 2.5 years. And about 80% of the time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that device. It is a perfectly functioning device, and we just think that we need something new. And what we want to tie that to is the fact that 90% of the carbon footprint of our electronics actually occur during the original manufacturing process. So really, it's about doing more with what we already have. Extending the lives of the devices we already have can be such an impactful, sustainable behavior to grow with our customers.
And I think you put it nicely, Lauren, in terms of you started out by kind of telling the what of what you're selling and how you're selling it, but you kind of get into the why too, and that matters to your customer too, right? I would think that they're coming to that marketplace because they believe in the benefits of re-commerce, those sustainability benefits that they're getting by shopping secondhand from back market.
Absolutely. More and more, we are seeing customers in our own surveys and their reporting of it's not just about the value that they can save in, buying a circular tech device with us, but they're more aware of their own footprint. And they feel better about that consumption behavior when they are embracing the circular economy. And I think that we see that across not just devices, right? But across all of our decisions through clothing. And you'll hear me talk about the used car industry as well, but we're all getting more comfortable with buying circular.
And then thinking about that, we're all getting more comfortable buying circular secondhand. That certainly applies to the growth that we've seen in the refurbished secondhand tech marketplace. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the growth that you've seen in that category. Obviously, it's kind of your day to day at back market. So tell us a little bit about, in particular, why such a growth in consumer interest in the tech secondhand marketplace.
Yeah, I think there's the value piece, and then there is also the sustainability. But when we look at the climbing prices of new tech and the slower innovation in these products, I think more customers are delaying what I spoke to about that upgrade process, 2.5 years, and they're starting to question maybe it should be 3.5 years, or maybe rather than upgrading to a new device, I want to think circular. And part of that, when I talk about the price, if I think about the latest model of the iPhone, it's a 15 right now. It's a price point about $830 for the basic model. And for $150 less, a customer on back market could be getting the iPhone 14 Pro, one generation less, but a device with a stronger camera, a better display. And so I think our customers are getting smarter about those decisions when they think about the real value they're going to be getting from their tech. And historically, this challenge that we've had with customers around breaking away that habit of buying new, we're getting them to really rethink tech consumption. And I believe it's not just that economic factor, but it is about the quality. And that's where back market has been able to really differentiate ourselves as a marketplace, because we are solely dedicated to those verified refurbished tech devices. It's an entire experience built around that. So I talked earlier about we want to be like a new device. I want to deliver that same experience to you. So it's hitting the same shipping standards of fast and free and 30-day returns and a 1-year warranty. And I think all of that strong customer experience is really driving our number one channels for acquisition, which are word of mouth and customer referrals.
And I would imagine, to your point, just because they're buying secondhand, the customer's expectations for high level of service, that doesn't go away, right? They expect the same high level of service when it comes to shipping, the product they're receiving, the post-purchase support. That's all part of the equation too.
Yes, and maybe they're even more attuned to the experience that they're going to be getting because they're purchasing, from back market for the first time, or it's the first time that they're embracing a refurbished device. and they're used to purchasing that new. And so we have to hold ourselves to that same standard and over deliver on them.
So you talked, Lauren, about kind of the education piece too, which I think is really important for back market. Tell us a little bit about some of the tactics you're employing to account. We've addressed this surging demand for secondhand
Mm.
refurbished tech. The demand is out there, then it's up to kind of grab your market share at back market. How do you think you can go about that? Talk about education, some of the marketing investments potentially you've made, technology investments. Tell us a little bit about how you think about capturing the increased demand we're seeing in this category.
Yeah, so we really aim to educate the customers against where does refurbished sit between new and used, right? This isn't a peer-to-peer marketplace. Every single seller on our marketplace is a professional refurbisher. Joe, you mentioned earlier about the quality standards that we're setting and how are we ensuring that? And there's a level of education that we have to give to our customer to say, hey, 60% of the cars in the US are going to be sold this year are going to be used. And one of the reasons that we've seen that evolution and that comfort, we no longer have the fear that we're going to be getting a lemon or is this safe, are because of reports like a Carfax vehicle history report. And that same type of technology actually exists for your devices, for your smartphone, for your laptop, for your tablet. We can run these inspection reports and come out and say, hey, I've run a 60-point inspection test on every functionality of this device and every button, and it works. And so making sure that customers know this is not about, well, it turned on, I hope the device meets your expectations, but how technologically advanced we are and testing and repairing these devices to guarantee that they're working like new. And how are we doing that? It's a big message for me to put inside of a Google ad, right? And so it really has to be about delivering on that experience and promoting the customer to drive that word of mouth. We also see very high engagement with our own newsletters and the content that we start to create there and trying to educate the customers, not just about the sustainability of the devices and the testing that we do for quality, but even helpful usage tips. When do I need to actually update my device's battery? We've actually seen some of the most engagement on content like that, where we're educating about future times when they might want to actually think about upgrading.
I want to talk a little bit about something that you alluded to earlier, and I think is really interesting. And that's kind of continuing on this theme of marketing, thinking about, and I think the term you used at back market, and at least in some of the research that I've done, is the chief family officer, and how that factors into your customer acquisition and retention strategies. Because in a lot of cases, I would imagine, as customers shopping back market, maybe looking for that, the first phone or device for their middle schooler or high schooler, thinking about that. Tell us a little bit about that chief family officer and what that means in terms of customer acquisition and retention for back market.
Yeah, our chief family officer, our CFO, they are the person in that household, driving the purchase decisions for themselves, for their children, also for their parents. And we know that they're looking for value. They're looking for convenience. The most important thing is that their time is precious. So the reliability of the device, the quality of it is so critical for them. And so some of the things that we roll out and think about, our customer care, our brand building is our best marketing. So how can we make it easy for them? A most recent example is that post-purchase, we offer a live tech support line. Hey, if you need to activate this device, you might not know how to change out that SIM number, or you might not know how to move your pictures from one laptop, to another. And we'll get on live with you and screen share and help you to do that. And I think putting forward those types of extra benefits, when I speak about our marketplace really being dedicated to this tech space, help us to differentiate from others. But I have to add on here with a long answer, but I've spoken so much about customers and the CFO buying from us. We also have that trade-in program. And these chief family officers, they are the members of the household that are most likely to participate in our trade-in program. And so they know where all their unused devices are being stored away. And a recent survey showed that the average household has a minimum of about 4 devices stored in a drawer. an old phone, another tablet, like the earphones that you bought yourself during the pandemic, and you're not using the noise canceling as much. And the average price paid to our customer on a device trade-in for back market is almost $200. And so for those customers, times 4 devices, that's a nice chunk of
Yeah.
change for them. And so it's not just about buy something from us. We're equally invested in having customers sell those devices back into the circular economy.
And I think about personally my own situation. I have a daughter that's kind of getting that age where she's looking for her first phone, and like as parents, we don't. I don't think she needs all the bells and whistles of the latest model of an iPhone, for example. So I would imagine a number of customers are in a similar scenario. And then kind of the other end of the spectrum is the older shopper that doesn't necessarily care as much about the bells and whistles of some of the technology updates that are happening and are perfectly happy getting a device that is perfectly usable, just not, it might not be the latest model. So kind of you've got both kind of ends of the demographic spectrum covered there, right?
Absolutely. And with the CFO, that group is helping us to reach, up and down. And then our second one is actually our students. We have a really large population as well because, Joe, they're so sustainably minded. And so it's not just about, do I need the latest and the greatest? Is this good enough? We see more and more at those younger generations that they're also really motivated by the sustainability of the device.
And actually, as we record this right at kind of the kickoff, or not kickoff, but we're in the midst of back to school season, right? Particularly for students, you talk about that as a core demographic for back market. Tell us a little bit about back to school and how you think about capturing some of those, whether it's college students, high school students that may be purchasing devices from back market.
Yes, this busy season for us, this back to school is just as big as the holiday season because we have students that are returning to college for, a MacBook might be right for them, a tablet to be able to take notes on. But you have so many students that are also seeking Chromebooks, for their schools and schools seeking those Chromebooks as well. So, Joe, when we think about the customers that we're supporting now, Back Market also offers B2B services. And so we start to see those schools coming in to acquire for their classrooms as well.
That's actually an interesting point, and I hadn't thought about that, but kind of that B2B shopper as well. Our conversation's been really, I've been thinking about the consumer, but businesses too, the school districts and other businesses that they comprise a portion of the back market audience as well.
It's really big, and there's such a nice handoff between the two, whether you're a consumer and you discover us here, or whether you're a business and we can talk to the employees that a company is passing out. We sell them all of their laptops to be able to say, hey, and you're seeing this work, as good as new on your desk every single day. The next time that you're also looking for a tablet for home or for that smartphone for your kid, consider back market.
And then lastly, Lauren, can you talk a little bit about growth strategy? There's an opportunity here. We've kind of addressed a little bit about some of the things that you're doing now at back market to capitalize on the demand. What's kind of down the road? What's down the road? What are you kind of future plans in terms of growth and how you can potentially even continue to capture more market share?
Hmm. You know, our growth strategy has been about quality and it continues to be focused around that. Let me give you a couple of examples. So, one of the big changes that we made in 2022, and we're seeing really pay off for our customer experience this year, is that we made the decision to take over all of the customer care post-sale questions. So, in a traditional marketplace, might redirect you, to the seller to find a resolution. And on back market, if the customer does need support post purchase, they are now speaking to a back market customer care agent. And what that means for us is it's fast, it's frictionless, it's consistent, no matter which seller you are purchasing from. And I mentioned that just plays off in word of mouth marketing. That plays off in the repeat that we can tie back to the customers when we were able to resolve that challenge for them frictionlessly. And so when we talk about what is our growth strategy, everything consistently just comes back to how can we deliver out a perfectly functioning device And if there is any sort of friction, one, can we get ahead of it and be preventing it? I talked to you about Tech Squad to make sure that if somebody's got a challenge, we're on the phone helping them get their device set up. To can we make sure that we give the best customer experience afterwards?
And to your point, you kind of have a unique value proposition that you're able at Back Market to then own that experience, right? Many of the marketplaces, you have to deal with the seller itself, and it can be a challenge that way. You kind of control that experience and deliver the level of execution, consistency, and just a high touch experience that many consumers, especially if they're buying a device that that's not a necessarily a luxury item, but certainly not an inexpensive item too. So there's probably the consultative approach that you want to offer your customer as well.
That's exactly it. And it's huge for us because if you purchase, Joe, I'm laughing, you said back market perfectly throughout this entire conversation, but a lot of people have a slip and say we're black market.
Right.
And if you buy a device from black market and your, laptop doesn't work as expected, we're not burning a bridge, with our brand. I may be turning you off from the circular tech economy completely. You go back and buy new. And that just destroys the mission that I shared with you for back market, for what we really want to accomplish in terms of getting you to embrace the circular economy. And not just then for tech, this is how we approach it, but I hope you make more sustainable decisions in all of your consumption behavior. And so exactly what you said is being able to control that customer experience as much as we can to make sure that it's delivering the standards we want it to, is our growth strategy.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, right? You can benefit and buy from other e-commerce sites, but it's creating that cycle of goodwill, and it's also going to result in potentially more growth for Back Market as a business. So you get the dual benefit of the sustainable environmental benefit, but also it's good for the business too, right? Of Back Market.
That's very true. And it's part of the partnerships that we're starting to look for and reach out to is how do we find those other sustainable brands? If you are buying, I call them the ugly fruit. We get the fruit that the grocery store won't take. I have a subscription service for that. If you're sustainably minded and searching for that, I'm confident that you want to know about Back Market as an option. How do we start to make those bridges?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I want to, as we wrap up, thank Lauren Benton, again, the general manager in the U.S. for Back Market, for joining us on this episode of Total Retail Talks. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.